Hello everyone, welcome to today's lecture. In our previous lecture, we have learned about HTTP protocol. In today's lecture, we are going to learn about how message is transferred or what is the structure when HTTP message is requested by the client. So we all know that HTTP is a backbone for internet. It is based on the request response model. It is a communication protocol through which browser and web server communicate with each other. So HTTP helps to construct the request and response messages in such a way that client and server understand each other on the web. Resources which are transferred between them are chunks of the information identified by the URL. Usually resources could be a file or a dynamically generated query results or a script or a document, anything. Important and basic features to know about HTTP is that it is a stateless protocol. It means the server and browser know each other only during the current request and response cycle. Afterwards, both of them forget about each other. Due to this nature, either the browser or server can't retain information between different requests of the communication cycle. So that is a basic introduction about HTTP. Now let's understand what is a HTTP messages. So HTTP messages shows how data is exchanged between a server and client. So there are mainly two types of messages. One is a request message and second is a response message. A request message sent by the client to trigger an action on the server, and the response messages are the answer from the server. So let's start with the request message. So the first is a HTTP request message. So this image shows the format of HTTP request. It is a ASCII format, which means it is a human readable format. So when we enter the URL in the browser, it translates the URL into a request message using a URI and HTTP method according to the HTTP protocol standards and sends the request across the internet using TCP/IP. Web server receives the request and responds with the requested web page. So irrespective of how complex the application logic is, web application responds with HTML as the browser intercepts the HTML and display of web pages along with its assets like CSS, JavaScript, and so on. Hence, a web server or a web application's primary job is to receive a request, process the request, and create an HTML output. So suppose you are entering the URL like http://abc.com/index.html. So when you enter that URL, now that URL is converted into one message format. It is called the HTTP request message format. So it contains mainly 4 lines. It contains mainly 4 attributes, which is a request line, header line, blank line, and entity body. So let's understand each terms in detail. So the first is a request line. So the request line begins with a method token followed by the request URI and protocol version. The elements are separated by space characters. So here this is the format of request line. So what the request line contains? So first it contains the method name. Second, after the space, second element is a requested URL. After space, the third element is HTTP version. So this is the format of request line. It contains method, URL, and version. So let's understand each terms in detail. First is a method. So request methods are of many types. First is a get, head, post. So the first is get method. So get method is used to retrieve the information from the given server using a given URI. A request using get should only retrieve data and should have no other effects on the data. So get verb is used to get a web resources from the server. During get request, the state of web application does not change, For example, it does not create a new user account based on the GET request. Yes, hence GET requests are usually considered as a safe. It means suppose you are requesting content from some URL. So the work of GET is just retrieve that static data. If you want to add data to the server, then it is not possible via the GET method. Second is a POST method. So a POST request is used to send data to the server. For example, a customer information, file upload, etc. using the HTML forms. So a POST verb is used to post or send the data to the web server. It results in changing the state of the application. For example, signing up for a website by entering the user's information on a form and sending the data contained in the form to server. So that is done by the POST. So POST request does not always result in the HTML page being sent to the client. Instead, the client uses the response code to determine if the operation on the application was successful or not. So the difference between GET and POST is, in the GET we can only retrieve the information, we can only show the information, while in the POST we can save our data or we can upload our data on the server. So that is done with the POST method. Now the next method is put method. So put is replace all the current representation of target resource with the uploaded content. So it is used to ask the server to store the data. Yes. Next is a delete method. So delete removes all the current representation of the target resource given by URL. So it is used to ask the server to delete the data. And second is a head method. So in the head is the same as GET, but it transfers the status line and header section only. So we'll see what is the status line and header section in our later slide. But for now you understand that head is same work as a GET, but it transforms some data, transforms some attributes like status line and header in the request. So that is the work of each and every method This method used to request the data. So this is the attribute mean of request method. Yes. So now first is a method, the second attribute requested URL. Okay. So requested URL is the uniform resource locator, and it identifies the resources upon which to apply the request. Following are the most commonly used forms to specify a URL. We all know how we can write a URL on the browser. So that is called the requested URL, what data we want from the server. So first is a method, second is a URL. So URL is http:// suppose example is www.w3.org/ the path of that web page, what web page you need. So that is called the URL. So that is the requested URL. And the third is HTTP version. Yes, in our previous lecture I have discussed about HTTP version. Like if HTTP is a persistent HTTP, then the version is 1.1, and if it is a non-persistent, then version is 1.0. So if HTTP is persistent, then the version is 1.1, and if non-persistent, then version is 1.0. So this has become the request line. Now next is a header line. So header line means a request header fields allows the client to pass additional information about the request and about the client itself to the server. So these fields act as a request modifiers. Here is a list of some important request header fields that can be used based on requirement. So a header line contains some information about the client. So based on that information, server can recognize that client, and server can recognize the behavior of the client side. So that is why the header line is included. In the header line, the attributes are, for example, accept character set, accept encoding, accept languages, authorization, export, host name. So these are the attributes that are detail explained in the header lines. So in this format, first is a request line, first is a method, so you can use any method: get, post, put, delete. Yes. Next is URL and version, HTTP 1 or 0. Second is a header line. In this header line, information about client is stored. Now third is a blank line. So as per the format, there is one blank line here, and after that blank line, the last element is an entity body. So it is an optional body. If you want to write any additional information, so you can write here. Yes, so that is called the entity body. So this is the format of request message. Yes, so this is a example of request message. For example, HTTP request to fetch a hello.html page from the web server. So first line is a request line, so it contains method, URL and version. So here method is a get, URL is a hello.html, and version is HTTP 1.1. Next is a header lines. So header contains many attributes like user agent. So agent, first is a user agent. So we can say that agent is a Mozilla 4.0. Host www.abc.com. Accept languages is a English US. Accept encoding is gzip, and deflat connection is keep alive. So these are the information about the client. So it is called the header line. Now there is one blank line, and if you want, then we can add a body here, but generally the body is not included. This is a common format for any request, HTTP request message. So when you enter a URL on the browser, that URL is converted into this HTTP request message. Now the second one is a response message. So after receiving and interpreting a request message, a server responds with a HTTP response message to the client. So when the server receives the request message, the server takes some action on that request. So some of the actions are like it maps the request to the file under its document directory and return the file to the browser. Suppose the client requests for the file, one document file, then server mapped that file and responded with the file. It mapped the request into the program which is kept within it, and then execute the program and return the output of the program to the client. When suppose we are executing a program on the online compiler, so in that situation it returns the output to the client. When request cannot be satisfied, it returns an error message. Yes, suppose we are requesting something that is not relevant or that is not on that server. So it sends the error message. So these are expected responses from the server. So this is a common format or a general format for the response message. It contains status line, header lines, blank line, and entity body. Yes, the attributes is similar to the request message, but in the status line, the status line's attributes are different. That in the response message, status line attributes are version, status code, and phrase. Header is same as request. Message. Blank line is also same, and entity body is also same as the request message. The only difference is in the status lines. So let's understand each in detail. So in status line consists of the protocol version followed by a numeric status code, and it is associated with a texture phrase. The elements are separated by space. So status line contains, as I already said, that it contains HTTP version, status code, and reason phrase. Yes. So let's understand what is a HTTP version. As I already said, that version is 1.1 if it is a persistent HTTP, 1.0 if it is non-persistent HTTP. There is a second field, it is a status code. So let's understand what is the meaning of status code. So as we know that the web application sends the response to the every request. So the server uses a response code to tell the client that what happened to the request being received. The status code is a 3-digit number. So as shown in table, the first code is 1XX. 1XX means the first digit is a 1 and second and third digit may be anything. So if you receive a code like 103, 144, 125, 188, yes. So if status code is start with the 1, then it is called the informational code. It means that the request was received and it is in the processing. So if you are entering one URL on the browser and it shows status code :125, yes, so it means that your request is already received by the server and your request is processing. The second code is 2XX. It means a success. So if you receive any 205, 211 status code on your browser, it means that your request is successfully received. Yes, it means the action was successfully received, understood and accepted. When you request your request message and if you receive a status code starting with 2, it means your request is accepted successfully. It is something like if you order your food and it is in processing, then your status code is 1. If your order is accepted by the restaurant, then your status code is 2. Now this 3XX, it means redirection. It means further action must be taken in order to complete the request. So it means that based on the food example, it means that your food is preparing. Yes, so if the status is food is preparing, it means your request is preparing. Yes, it means the response of your request is preparing. Yes, so that is indicated by the status code starting with the 3. Suppose the status code 301, 312, etc. If status code is starting from the 4 and then it is called the client error. It means the request contains an incorrect syntax or cannot be fulfilled. Suppose after fetching and processing your request, it is found that your request is not relevant or it contains incorrect syntax. So the status code is given by the 4XX. Suppose you are writing an HTML page, yes, and you run on your browser. So what happened? There is some error occurred and the status code is 425. So it means that there is some syntax error in your code. So that is shown with the status code starting with the 4. So we can compare the situation with our food, like your address is wrong. So that is why that error is came from client side. That is why the error code is that is why it is called a client error. So the last is a status code starting with the 5th digit. So it is called the server error. It means the server failed to fulfill an appropriately valid request. So suppose your request is processed, but that your requested content is not found in server. So that type of error is shown with the status code starting with the 5. Suppose 512, 525, 555. Yes. So we can compare this status code or this error with our food example. Like suppose your delivery address is too far from that restaurant. So at that time the restaurant is not delivered your order. The restaurant cannot deliver your order. So that type of error is called the server error. Yes. So that is all about status code. Yes. So first is HTTP version, second is a status code, and third is a reason phrase. So reason phrase means, suppose on your screen the status code is 100, but you don't know what is that 100 code. So that is shown with the reason phrase. So reason phrase means in the section 10.1.1, this status code 100 means continue. If status code is 101, so in section 10.1.2, The status code 101 is switching protocol. It means the switching protocol. If status code is 200, so reason phrase says that it means that it is okay. It show the status. So the meaning of that status code is shown with the reason phrase. So that is a reason phrase. So that is the first line is a status line. Second line is a header line. It is the same as a request message. So a response header field allows the server to pass additional information about the response which cannot be placed in the status line. These header fields give information about the server and about further access to resource identified the requested URL. So the attributes in the header lines from server side is accept range, age, e-tag, location, proxy authentication, retrieve, etc. fields are added in the header lines. And next attribute is blank line and entity body. Yes, so that are the optional. So main two lines are status line and header lines. So this is the example of response message. In our example of request message, we are requesting one page which is a hello.htm. So we are requesting that page to the server, and server response to that message is first is version of HTTP. Yes. Second is status code. It is a 200, and third is a response phrase. It is means okay, means a request is successfully served. Next are the header lines. It contains attribute like date, which server is from which server your request is served, modified date, content length, connection, and with that your response message is also sent by the server. So suppose you are requesting the page hello.htm, said the response of that request is shown in HTML code like HTML body, and it contains hello world content. Yes, so this is how message is transferred between transfer with the help of HTTP. If you are requesting something, that URL is converted into the request message. That request message is sent to that server. Server received that request message. After receiving the request, the response is converted into the HTTP response message with the content, and that content and HTTP response message is sent to the client. So that is how communication has been done. So that is all about HTTP. So thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.